I actually already recorded a version of this video which had lots of really nice shots and lots of planned dialogue and lots of really great points about the way you see the world depending on the camera that you're holding. The thing is, when I was re-watching the footage, it felt really inauthentic, really just not great. The sound quality wasn't great either because I'd accidentally boosted the gain on this microphone, and so I'm re-recording it basically, and hopefully this time it'll be a little bit better and kind of more true to the kind of content I want to be putting out. The topic I want to talk about for today was how the camera you're holding impacts the way you see the world around you. And I kind of really realized this when I went to Paris a few weeks ago, and I brought my phone, this one that's recording right now, to take a bunch of photos. And I realized that I wasn't seeing the world the same way as when I hold an actual camera. I wasn't seeing the same lines, I wasn't looking for the same angles or any of that stuff. And that's what drove me to make this video, to talk about this effect. The fact that the camera you hold really impacts the kind of photos you take. I can already hear the keyboard warriors telling me how wrong I am about this, but please, 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 please hear me out. I have a point to make. The thing is, I think that this phenomenon of the photographer taking different photos with different cameras he's using sort of presupposes that they're familiar with the camera systems they're using. You know, I think it really is true that you take different photos depending on the camera that you're using. And I think that that's because you're subconsciously aware of what the camera can do. So for example, if I'm using different film stocks, I'll make a pretty conscious choice about the kind of photos that I'm taking. But even if I'm using different digital cameras, you know, I might use them in different situations or for different things. And I think that that's the case with phones too. I think that that's why phones are terrible at taking photos, because you don't see the world in the same way when you're holding one. I mean, for me, personally, when I'm holding a phone, I'm switched off, so to speak. If I hold a real camera in my hands, sorry, I'm just trying to not get run over. If I'm holding a real camera in my hands, it's like a switch that flips. I see different lines, I see different colors, I see different angles, all of that stuff. And I think that's something that everyone really experiences, whether they realize it or not. And that's why I really wanted to make this video, to talk about this, because I think it's a very interesting phenomenon. And I don't think there's too much you can do about it. I think being aware of it certainly helps. It means that it means that you're more aware of what's going on, and it means that you can maybe try and imitate the habits and the approaches you may have with an actual camera, a dedicated camera, you might say. And I think that that's pretty much the best you can do to resolve this issue. I'm quite curious to hear what any of you might have to say on the subject, because, and you know, in the original version of this video, I had lots of very pseudo-pensive shots where I pretend to be very thoughtful about this topic and look off into the distance, which obviously I've gotten rid of because I didn't find it very authentic, even though it felt right for the topic, because it's a very personal topic, it's a very subjective topic. And I think a lot of people will get offended if I tell them that their phones are bad. It's not the phone in this case, it really is the person and the way they perceive their phone, which I think is even more interesting. And I find this kind of stuff absolutely fascinating, because I take a lot of photos with my phone, and they just don't hit the same. And it's not really because the phone is bad at taking photos. These phones are amazing at taking photos. I mean, I'm recording on it right now. You can see the natural depth of field is kind of insane. Really, it's more about how you see the world and how you use it. And the thing is, the tragedy of this all is, I'm a tragedy of the commons, I'm on a common, that's funny. the tragedy of this all is that it's really not the quality. I mean, when I take, especially this phone here, the 17 Pro Max, right, the iPhone, if I take a photo of a landscape with good lighting, and I take that same photo on, say, my Sony a6400, which is now like a 7-year-old camera, they're both 24 megapixel photos, and you won't be able to tell a huge difference, especially at first sight. You'd probably need to blow it up quite large to see a huge difference in good lighting. And I think that's very interesting. But the kinds of photos I take are completely different with the both. And the iPhone photos, they just feel different. And I've realized it's not just the post-processing the phones do and the sharpening and the color science, it's also the photo itself. I would not have taken that same photo with my actual camera, just like I wouldn't have thought to take certain photos with my phone that I would take with my camera. And I think that's really interesting. It's not something that as far as I know, has been studied, but it's absolutely fascinating. And it's been making me think a lot recently, because I often talk about how I'd like to have a camera on me at all times, and I do in this phone. But it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. I don't get the same photos. I don't get the same quality of photos. Anyway, this has been a rather rambling and ranty video as a result of me not using the script that I originally intended to use. But I hope that as a result, the video has been maybe somewhat more authentic, if probably somewhat badly framed, despite my using a gimbal. Anyway, let me know if you preferred this style of video and what you think of me speaking more frankly, I suppose, more directly to the camera, speaking truth to power, if you will. I do have one last thought to add to all of this, which is that the fact that we treat different cameras differently, I've mentioned that that's subconscious, but I also think, oof, that's bright. I've mentioned that it's subconscious, but I also think that part of the issue, or it's not an issue really, but part of the interest in this is really that all other things being equal, say I use two different cameras with the same focal length and same aperture range, I will still take different photos because the camera feels different. It's what you might call the soul of the camera. If I pick up my Sony a6400 and I whack, let's say, my 28mm f2 lens on it, which is like a 43 equivalent basically for full frame, I will take very, very, very different photos to if I have, say, a Canon 550D with that same lens on it. Not that they ever made one, but it's just the principle that counts. Because the camera feels different. I feel like it's intended for different purposes, for different types of photo. And that's something that's really hard to put into words or to identify how or why that exists.